Thank you, Nilima. Hello and good evening to everyone. And just before starting, I would also like to add my respects to this great soul who has been a towering figure for the last 7 decades and touched the lives of so many millions around the world. And especially, I feel being remembered for her humanitarian approach to life, her dignity, and the love that she shared with so many. So our topic for tonight is to explore concentration. And my own journey in self-awareness and spirituality began when I was around 8 or 9 years old. And so through my parents, I came to attend a BK meditation center in the east of London back in those days. So what I'll be sharing tonight is some of the methods and ways which have worked for me, and I'm hoping they can be also useful for you in your life. I'm also aware that people are at different levels of ability in terms of being able to concentrate. Some already practice meditation and their concentration may be quite good. For others, it may be rather new. And so let's explore this topic together tonight. And I'd like also to do a few simple exercises with you to look into how to actually build up concentration. So firstly, why should we do this? Why is concentration important? Well, when we develop this great human skill of being able to concentrate, then pretty much everything in our lives improves. And I think the first and foremost thing which improves is your relationship with yourself, your ability to listen to yourself, your ability to understand your own internal, emotional, and mental mechanisms. And if you're able to understand yourself better and have a good relationship with your mind, that then puts you in a position to be able to understand other people better. It enables you to be able to listen better. And I find this is perhaps the first and most important communication skill, is to be able to listen to others. How often do we hear the comment, "You don't understand me. You didn't listen to what I was saying." And one reason for that is because when we are listening to someone, our mind is wandering off and doing something else. Or what typically happens, especially in the big cities, is one person may say something to me, and I hear the first few sentences of what that individual is saying, and the rest of the time that person is speaking, it's as though I am busy preparing my response. So I'm not listening to you, but I'm listening to me, preparing my response to you. And of course, by the time you have finished what you're saying, my response is now irrelevant. So listening enables us to understand each other. When we understand each other, then we can come together and cooperate with each other. Concentration also improves our memory. And with regard to memory, two things are important. There are things to remember, and there are things to forget. But when we mix these two up, when we remember what should be forgotten and forget what needs to be remembered, then of course life gets very complicated. Concentration also enables us to be better in our decision making. Whether it's the major decisions of life, which may be concerned with your job or family and so on, or it's the everyday decisions, spur of the moment decisions, what to say, what to buy, what to not do, etc. It's a big part of improving concentration is really to know how to look after the mind. And it has been said that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your mind. Now, we could look at the mind as a kind of machine, a living machine. And with any machine that you buy, you receive a user manual. And that tells you how to look after it, how to use it properly. The question arises, well, where is the user manual for the mind? The first thing the mind creates is thoughts. And so the question arises, well, what kind of thoughts are healthy and meaningful first thing in the morning? What sort of thoughts should come a little later in the day? How much should you think about something? When is it time to let something go and allow the past to be the past? So it seems as though there is a whole world of understanding, a whole science of understanding, which we tend to miss out on as we go through life. And I feel as a result of this, we simply pick up some bad habits with regard to how we are using our minds. By the time we are adults, some of those bad habits become quite deep-rooted, and then they simply are driving the way we are living, the way we are thinking, the way we are interacting with others. And hence, it takes a little bit of training and attention and discipline to be able to rid the mind of those bad habits of overthinking. Let's explore a bit more some of the mechanisms of the mind and explore why this is important in concentration. I'm reminded of an amusing little story of a group of students, young students, excuse me, who wished to learn how to concentrate and how to meditate. So they were sitting in front of their teacher, their master, somewhere outside. And so their teacher told them, well, if you want to concentrate, then here is what you must do. And he asked them all that, can you think for the next 2 minutes of absolutely anything you want? Just allow your mind to think of anything except a monkey with a red face. And so all these students, they sat for 2 minutes and did this exercise. And after 2 minutes, the teacher asked them, who thought about the monkey with the red face? And of course, every single hand went up. And this makes us aware of the principle that the mind does not respond well to the word no. When you tell it not to think of something, not to do something, you're programming it to do that very thing. Instead, the mind needs to be guided. The mind needs to be led towards the place where you wish it to go. So important to understand the habits of the mind in order to know how to build concentration power. And yes, it is a skill that needs to be practiced, just like any skill. If I wish to play a musical instrument or learn a language or improve culinary skills, the more I practice, the more adept I will become at that. Why this is a challenge today is because, as we all know, we live in a world where we are bombarded with so much information every moment of the day. Now, this has increased in the last few years as, of course, pretty much everybody has a mobile phone in their hand, or at least at arm's distance. And so we receive so much information in so many different ways. And the mind then finds itself responding to and looking at so many pieces of information. And this can have the effect of also reducing our attention span. I was reading a statistic somewhere which says that on average, a person will look at a post on Instagram, for example, for about 8 seconds. Then they go to the next one, the next one, and the next one. And so it's a challenge that to live in a world where there is so much information, but we need to have the wisdom to sort through it and know what is useful to me and what is useless. Nothing wrong with technology. I'm not saying technology is bad, but what I am saying is the greatest of all technologies, which we need to honor and use well, is the mind. Now let's take an example of how concentration happens. Let's say, for example, I ask you to sit in a comfortable armchair, and I ask you to look at a TV screen, and on that screen is showing your favorite film. And let's say the film is about 2 hours long. I ask you to sit in that seat and watch that film for 2 hours. And I say, don't move around too much. Just try and sit still and focus, watch the film. Could you do it? Most people would say, yeah, 2 hours. I think I can manage it. It's my favorite film. Okay, so now let's take a second scenario. I ask you to sit in that same armchair, look at the same screen for 2 hours, try to sit still, don't wriggle about too much, but this time the TV is off, nothing showing on the screen. Now, could you do it this time? Most will say, well, no, I couldn't really. 2 hours is too long just to sit looking at a blank screen. Well, what's the difference between the first scenario and the second scenario? In the first scenario, you were watching the film, you were enjoying the film, you were being entertained. In the second scenario, there was nothing showing. So perhaps you got bored and the mind started wandering. And when the mind wanders, then naturally you start shifting around and moving here and there. But the question arises that in the first scenario, where was the film actually happening? Was it happening on the screen, or was it actually happening in your mind? Now, the screen is not a living thing. It is showing you certain images, and there are some sounds coming from the television. But your mind is the living energy. Your mind is thinking about what you are seeing. The film is stimulating ideas and thoughts in your mind and is generating emotions. So the film actually is happening in your mind, not on the screen. And according to what you're watching, you may be taken through a roller coaster ride of emotions. There could be fear, there could be excitement, there could be terror, there could be sadness, according to what you're seeing. And there could be different ideas, different sorts of thoughts may get stimulated. So in fact, all experience is within the mind. And for people who practice meditation in their lives, they realize this, that if I am able to have some kind of coordination over my thoughts, then I have some coordination over my emotions too. And this is where concentration comes in. What is concentration? How can we define that? Well, simply put, concentration is when the two main components of our consciousness come together and are working together as one. Now, what are those two components? One is the mind, and the other is the intellect. The mind, simply put, represents what you wish to do, what you feel like doing, what you desire to do. And your intellect represents what you should do, what you know is the right thing to do. When there is a mismatch between these two things, concentration is poor. Now, think back at school, for example. Which subjects was it easy to concentrate on? It would be the ones that you liked. So for some, it may be maths. For others, it may be history. For some, maybe physics. Why? Because it's what you enjoyed. And when you enjoy the lesson, the time seems to sail by very quickly. An hour goes by as though it was just 10 minutes. But where there are lessons which you didn't enjoy, then an hour seems like 5 hours. And your mind begins to wander. You look outside the window, you look at your watch, and you wonder how much longer until the bell goes. Where there is interest and where there is enjoyment, concentration is natural. And it's important to know this in order to know how to guide the mind. If the mind wants, for example, entertainment, if the mind wants to be happy, the mind wants to experience that kind of emotion, and I'm trying to feed it with peace, it's the wrong thing. The example given is if a person is crawling through the desert, parched, thirsty for a drop of water, and you offer him a pizza or a 5-course meal, it's very nice, but what he needs is water. Much the same way, I need to understand what my mind desires in order to be able to guide it with my intellect. Now, there are times when we find it difficult to focus. Taking again the example of the student. A student may have an exam tomorrow or the day after, and one part of the student is saying, I must focus, I must concentrate, pay attention, tomorrow is the exam. The mind is saying, boring, 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 I don't feel like doing this, let me go and watch TV or scroll through my phone or something. So what are these two energies which are going in different directions? The intellect is saying, is the voice of reason, focus, concentrate, pay attention. The mind doesn't feel like doing it. And in this context, the mind is a child, and the intellect is the parent. So the mind has become rather indisciplined. The mind has become a bit of a wild child and doesn't listen to the parent, to the intellect. So what to do? How can we solve this situation so the mind and the intellect both come together into what is known as concentration? Well, as I mentioned, one method is to understand what interests and what the mind enjoys. But the other thing which we practice in the spiritual journey, in the journey of meditation, is to do with looking at technique. Now, there are two steps which come before concentration. One of those is known as visualization, and the other is known as contemplation. When visualization and contemplation come together, they lead to this state which is known as concentration. Now, some people are more visual, some people are more contemplative. But in the practice of meditation that we do, we use both of these methods. So visualization, as the term suggests, is you create a visual image and you just try to hold it. A step before that for beginners is you go on a visual journey, which is also known as guided imagery. So keeping that visual image, holding the visual image, and at the same time, self-talk, contemplation on certain selected thoughts. These two things together are going to bring the energy of the mind and the intellect together. And we're going to do one or two exercises to see how this works. Now, let me also add that many people in the world do meditation, but few people are meditators. And what this means is that many people find some way to meditate, to relax, to de-stress, to calm down. And this can be enough for a person. But to be a meditator means you make it into a lifestyle. And it's rather like an athlete who wishes to win the gold medal in the races. So for her or for him, to eat healthy is a lifestyle. Such a person will naturally be aware of what she or he eats, when he or she eats, how much, etc. Because maintaining optimum weight is essential for an athlete. So too, for a person who is a meditator, they understand that the most precious energy I have is my thought energy. And as I pass through the scenes of day-to-day life, there's a natural vigilance, a natural awareness that am I throwing away this precious, precious fuel of thought power? Am I wasting my thought energy? If we learn to conserve our thought energy as we pass through the day, naturally our intellect and our mind are going to come into greater harmony. And so let's do this. Let's start our first simple practice, a little visualization, which can just help us to direct our thought energy. So I'm going to play a little bit of background music. And let's just do this little exercise. It can help if you have your back straight. And if you wish for this particular exercise, you can just close your eyes for this particular exercise. Okay, so this simple exercise in concentration is using the power of images, because the mind thinks in pictures. So just imagine that your body is a machine and you are the living energy, the soul energy who operates this body machine. And you are inside the control room, which is at the center of your forehead. And so now, let us gently just relax and close the different parts of the body machine. And so we start with the feet. So just imagine that you are turning off the switch to the feet, and the feet muscles just relax. And your feet become still. And next, turn off the switch to the legs. And so the legs also relax. Any tension, any tightness in the muscles dissolves and disappears. And now turn off the switch to the stomach and the chest. Your breathing becomes calm, relaxed. Just allowing those stomach muscles to release any tension. And now we come to the hands and the fingers, the arms. Just turn off the switch to the fingers, the hands, and the arms. And they also become very loose, very comfortable. No tension, no tightness. And now the shoulders and the neck. Just slowly move your shoulders a little. Just make sure they are loose, relaxed. Just turn off the switch to the shoulders and the neck. And finally, we come to the face. Turn off the switch to the face until all that remains is you. You, the star of life. You, the living energy in the control room in the center of the forehead. the whole body machine has become quiet, is still. Just be with this image. With this image for 1 minute. Okay, I hope that was useful for you. It helps to go on this visual journey to build up concentration. And as your concentration improves, you can simply come straight to the image and just be with that image. These are exercises just like, you build up your muscles by going to the gym and you lift up weights and so on. Same way, concentration exercises are important in building up the muscle of the intellect. As the muscle of the intellect is strengthened, we're better able to coordinate, to discipline, to take care of the mind. Now, it does happen, of course, and probably it happened to you, that your thoughts started wandering. But that's okay, because the mind has the habit of wandering. But the thing to do is don't just allow it to wander, don't give up, come back again to the exercise. Come back to the image of that living star. The more you practice, the less the wandering happens. And again, just like any skill, what's important to develop it is regularity in the practice. Each day, build up on yesterday. So tomorrow, build on what I did today. Next day, better and better, developing concentration day by day. Now, coming to the next thing. As I mentioned, that making meditation into a lifestyle is really the key to being able to manage and take care of the energy of the mind. So on the one hand, yes, there are techniques like visualization, but on the other hand, it's also about how you live through the day and what you allow your mind to think about. So here's a little formula I'd like to share, which I really find useful and worth reflecting upon for yourself. And it's this, that your inner strength, or here I'm describing it as your resilience, or you may say also your ability to coordinate or your ability to concentrate, is connected to two things. One is the effort you may make to concentrate better. So tips, tricks, techniques that you may build into your day. That's great. But also we have to pay attention to the waste that we may be producing. So simple arithmetic tells us, if I want to increase my inner strength, I need to make more effort and less waste. In other words, do the right thing more and do the wrong thing less with regard to how I am using the energy of the mind. So what's the right thing and what's the wrong thing? Well, the right thing is to know four things to take care of. And again, I'm aware some of you may already be doing this. But the first thing is how to use the morning time. The morning is a very, very special time for our inner development, for our soul development. So first suggestion is when you wake up in the morning, before you look at your phone, before you talk to anybody, before you think about what to do during the day, first be with yourself and take care of the mind. And so for that, you may do a simple exercise like the one we've just done. Feed the mind with this experience of peace, serenity, and calmness. The mind deserves it. Before you engage with life, first engage with your inner self. And this really should become a habit, especially for those of us who are city dwellers. Because in a city, there are thousands of distractions, thousands of sounds all around you. Even this evening where I am, there's a lot of noise around in the streets. You may even have heard it. So suggestion one, first go inside before you go outward and talk to people and do things. Of course, important to be alert and fresh. So you may even have a cup of tea or coffee just to make sure you're feeling awake. Second thing is to read some uplifting wisdom. And it can even just be half a page or a paragraph or a few lines, but read something which is uplifting, some kind of spiritual wisdom, which is going to give you some rich food for thought for your intellect. One of the mistakes that happens in the modern day is we immediately start thinking of the news, the weather, things we have to do in the day, sports results, and so on. All those things should come a little later. But first, let me feed the soul with some uplifting spiritual wisdom and find whatever appeals to you. And as I say, it may just be a few lines, but think about that. You may think about virtue, for example. You may read something about tolerance or about self-respect or about humility, any of these virtues, which is very, very rich material to think about. Read that. Contemplate on it. When you read something meaningful and useful, it's important then just to put the book down or whatever you're reading and just reflect. Before you do the next thing, allow it to sink in. Reflect on it. And this is building the muscle of the intellect. So that's the second thing. Third thing is what we call as, and some of you probably do it already, traffic control for the mind. This is really essential. Think of a car, for example. If a car is going along a road and its speed is increasing, then to stop it when it's going at 70 miles an hour is very difficult. But if during the day, as the car is speeding up, you have these speed humps, or some people call them sleeping policemen. Then as the car comes to that speed hump, it needs to slow down. If you have a few speed humps along the road, you're able to manage the speed of the car. In the same way, if I only do my practice of meditation, for example, at the end of the day, it's like trying to stop a speeding car, and it's difficult. But if I have moments of silence, we call them meditations during the day, let's say every 2 hours, even if it's only for 2 minutes, or if you really don't have time, just 1 minute, just go to that inner space inside you. Just experience being that living star of peace. It's like detaching from the mode of doing and coming to the mode of being. And you're giving your mind a little recharge, recharging the battery of the mind. And then you come back to your work, your meeting, or whatever you are doing. This is really very important to control the thought traffic, to be able to manage and coordinate how my thought energy is working. And then the fourth thing is then how to end the day, how to put the mind to sleep. Now, I use the example of how you would maybe turn off a computer. You wouldn't just yank the plug out of the wall, but you know there are steps involved. You have to log out, you have to sign out, you have to shut down, and so on. In the same way, the mind has to be put to sleep, so we're not thinking, even during the night, and perhaps having disturbed sleep. So one suggestion, which is something I used to do, especially in my younger years, is you just try and think that whatever happened today is all part of a big theater, a big drama of life. Whatever happened, I may have done something amazing. I may have made some really silly and embarrassing mistake. I may have been criticized. I may have been praised. I may have been the center of attention, or I may have been ignored. All of that is just part of the big theater, the big drama of life. And for today, the curtain has come down. Today's performance is over. So it's like, multiplying the whole thing by 0, emptying the mind of the thoughts of the day, allow the mind to be light, and then going to sleep. And if we do that, then the quality of our sleep also improves. Otherwise, we keep thinking during the night, the sleep may not be good quality, and also we wake up in the morning feeling tired, because although physically you may have been lying down for 7 or 8 hours, but the mind has been on a marathon. If we take these simple things, experiment with them, the morning meditation, reading spiritual wisdom, traffic control for the mind, and putting the mind to sleep, then notice how much more fresh you'll feel the next day, and a natural ability to concentrate develops. Why? Because the mind is being properly cared for, and the energy of the intellect is not being wasted. Important to mention that know your level, start from there, and then build up. So for example, if your concentration is quite poor, start with baby steps. Don't do a half-hour practice of meditation. Start with a few moments, a few minutes. Gradually build up as your concentration power develops. Then lastly, what not to do. So these are things to do, the effort. What is the waste that we have to reduce? Well, in essence, 2 things we can all pay more attention to is reduce the waste in our speaking and reduce the waste in our thinking, words and thoughts. words are easier to manage than thoughts. So think of two things. Can I be more essenceful in my speaking? And can I be more economical in my speaking? Instead of saying something to someone in 30 words, can I say the same thing in maybe 20 words, 15 words? If I am able to do that, I'm saving the energy of those 10 or 15 words. And that energy is going to accumulate in the mind as this thing we call the power of silence. Can I be more economical with my words? And that means choosing what to say, when to say, how much to say, who to say it to. Sometimes you may say something to someone, but it's the wrong time. Or that person is not listening, or they're not concentrating. Then you have to repeat. So to be economical and really consider my verbal energy as an asset, not to speak unnecessarily. As they say, silence is golden. So, of course, we need to speak clearly. We need to speak in a way people understand. But let me be clear first about what I wish to say before I say it. And therefore, I will save my verbal energy. And then take this to the next level. Can I also be more essenceful and economical with my thoughts? And that's when we're really getting into the territory of some serious self-growth, when we're paying attention to our thoughts during the day. And when we notice I'm overthinking, wastefully thinking, negatively thinking, full stop, just full stop mind. With practice, we learn to develop these very, very good habits of knowing when to think, when to be expressive, when to put the full stop, and when to redirect the thought energy into a constructive, meaningful direction. So I think I've gone over time by a little. Let me just stop there and see if there's any comments or questions.
Thank you, Yogesh. Yeah, I've got a question that's just come in from a listener. Listening and speaking mindfully is key. Any tools for helping children?
Yeah, I have not used those tools myself, but I know within our spiritual university, there are a number of tools, commentaries, books, audio books that you can get that help children to be able to be more concentrated and to focus more. I think maybe Nilima, you could at the end give the website address or how people could get access to those resources.
Sure, we'll put it in the chat. Another question's just come in. I find it much easier to meditate at the end of the day, less on my mind, but find it harder and more beneficial in the morning. More anxiety of the day ahead and more on my mind. Is this normal?
Well, this is a great question. What is normal? Who is normal today? Yeah, actually, yeah, normal is just what the majority does. But what you're saying is also fairly common. As I say, we want to make it like a 24-hour lifestyle. So if I'm taking care of my thoughts and my energy during the day, it'll help me in the evening. If I'm doing meditation in the evening, it'll help my sleep. If I'm able to sleep well, it's going to help me in the morning. So with regard to your question, yes, it's a common, I don't want to use the word condition, but common experience. But simply, applying these things in our lives, I think helps us in every area of our life, morning and also evening.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if this is a question or a comment, but concentrated mind has less thoughts. Can we say this depends on my purpose?
That's an interesting question. Purpose is something each person needs to discover for themselves. And certainly my experience and the experience of other people I know, when you are clear about your personal sense of purpose in your life, it does help you to be more concentrated and to be more focused. And therefore, unnecessary thoughts, can reduce. So even just a simple example, I may find in a situation, I have 5 or 6 different options. And we can have lots of thoughts. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do the other? Which direction should I go in? What helps me a lot is just reminding myself, what is my purpose here? Why am I doing this? And if that sense of purpose is clear about why I am doing what I am doing, then it's easy to make a decision. It's easy to get focused. In other words, it's easier to be more concentrated when I'm clear about my purpose in doing anything. So in that sense, I would agree with that statement.
Okay, thank you. This is an interesting question because I'm the opposite. Would you recommend just silence or a meditation commentary? Sometimes I find I don't concentrate when listening to a commentary, whereas I personally find it easier to concentrate with a commentary.
I'm not sure of the question now.
Sorry, so would you recommend just silence or a meditation commentary? Sometimes I find I don't concentrate when listening to a commentary. That's what the listener has put.
Yeah. Well, the aim is to just use silence only. Commentaries are useful when we are, especially in the beginner stages, and anytime you find that your concentration is wavering, use the tool of a commentary. But as your concentration improves, you actually don't need a commentary at all. And you also don't need silence. In a sense, you could even be in a noisy place and yet be able to concentrate. And I guess that's really the measure of your concentration power, that even when you're in a busy city and there are people and noises around you, your thoughts are still going in the direction that you wish, rather than, being pulled by what you hear and by what you see. It's a question of practice. And this is one of the reasons I like this meditation, because it's not about going to the mountain and having a great time and coming back to the city, but it's like bringing the mountain with you, yeah? And being able to practice meditation and concentration wherever you may be.
Thank you. The last question then we'll take today is how to practice concentration in a provocative situation.
Well, the thing is to do it before you're in the provocative situation. So it's not like, okay, here's a provocative or stressful or difficult situation now. Let me practice some concentration. But if it's a lifestyle for you, and as I mentioned, if you can start the day, then you're already equipped. You're ready to be able to handle the provocative situation, which comes suddenly. Things happen suddenly. Going back to the example of physical fitness, and if a person is physically fit, taking care of their health, then if there is a sudden need or you have to do something which is physically challenging, you're already fit enough to do it. If you're practiced in swimming or in running, and you suddenly have to do that, you're ready for it. So if you're having a lifestyle in which you're taking care of your mind, you're in a state of readiness to handle sudden situations.